everybody. So, for a show of hands, who here has a commitment to mental health in their workplace? Okay, and who here is curious about incorporating mental health into their workplace's good? Okay, we're about 50-50. Who doesn't care about mental health? Okay, okay, that'll be helpful, I think, for our conversation. Well, we have three really wonderful women who have worked in fashion and good, and now mental health in different ways in similar industries. And I know that we all care deeply about eliminating the stigma associated with mental health, and we're in a very cool time where mental health is becoming fashionable, right? It's become kind of buzzy also. Would love if you guys could share about your work by sharing why mental health and what role does it serve in your work now? Yeah, sure, Pamela.
Hi, so I'm Pamela. Well, we design advocacy campaigns for social issues, and one of the campaigns that I wanted to do was around mental health. And I met Kenneth because someone from the CFDA introduced me, and he was working on this project, and so the product became really more a collaboration and partnership with Kenneth, and that's been incredible. And the people that work with me in our company have all worked on the Mental Health Coalition. And I found that one of the things that has been most valuable, instead of asking someone if they're okay, are you okay? Because I got this automatic kind of feedback. I think it made them feel like they should be okay. It was more like, how are you doing? Or, from the campaign that we did also, how are you really? I think that's a very simple question can have a big impact on people that you work with. And listening to the answer.
Caring.
Yeah.
Maybe Jillian.
Hi everyone, my name is Jillian Mershon. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My mental health journey professionally started about a decade ago. If those of you familiar with the JED Foundation, I used to be the program director, so I helped launch JED Campus. And then I switched to the corporate dark side, and have now been working with Saks Fifth Avenue on their foundation for about 4 years, and the foundation's mission is making mental health a priority in every community. So in addition to mental health philanthropy, we also think really hard similarly about how then do we make our insides match our outsides, and then integrate mental health into employee engagement, internal culture, and truly just the conversation that we're able to bring to the table. Proud Mental Health Coalition partner as well.
I'm Jen Moore, Executive Director of the Mental Health Coalition. I've been in this role for 3 years almost, oh my goodness. And before that, I actually worked for 10 years at Kenneth Cole Productions, leading all the social impact and good. My background was really in public health advocacy. And for so long, the conversation around public health advocacy for us, or for me personally as I was working, didn't actually really touch mental health. And as I'm learning more and more, and what we saw happen at Kenneth Cole, Amanda, you were right there with us, sort of pushing us to internally integrate more and more things, is that there's so much intersectionality around all of the parts of your health, and if you're not thinking about mental health, there's just such a big miss in terms of really being able to be healthy and what that means. And so it's been an incredible honor to be able to help, through the Mental Health Coalition, promote those messages to as many people as possible.
Like back almost 9 years ago, I think maybe even a decade ago, when we at Kenneth Cole started to look at what it means to talk about what's not being talked about in the world of mental health, we tapped in a partner to help us socialize it and start having these conversations, like what language should we use, not use? How do we start to create a culture that this is actually what we do, not what we talk about? So in the name of Collaboration for Good, which is our panel, can you guys share what has worked in partnerships maybe giving an example of a partnership that's really worked, and maybe an anecdote or two about what has worked less well.
Let's start with the negative. Actually, I did a partnership with Saucony, the sneaker brand. Sorry. But anyway, I did a partnership with them, and we donated money. It was shoes for women who run, and it was a play on women who run for office, and the money went back to an organization called She Should Run, and which was for people who identify as women running for office. And that was a very exciting project. It launched, I guess it's like 2 years now. The woman that I had no idea how they contacted us. I just thought, oh, they saw us, somewhere in a fashion magazine or something. And then close to the end of the project, right before it got launched, the woman that was the partner contacted us, told me that she had seen a T-shirt that we made that said, "I'm not perfect," and the perfect was sort of upside down and backwards. And this was pre-Mental Health Coalition. I think we gave money that we raised from that maybe to JED. But she told me the whole story of how she bought the shirt because her mother was struggling with depression, and she had, and she was crying in the meeting. And it was just a beautiful relationship that we built based on her seeing something that touched on mental health. And then within the same story, the shoes didn't sell as well as I think we thought they would, but I still wear mine.
But the alignment.
The alignment was right, and it was good. It wasn't, but yeah, it was kind of a beautiful project.
What about you, Jillian? How do you work with partners with your mental health work?
Sure. So funding primarily is what we do, but our nonprofit partners advise us and guide us in so many ways, like you mentioned in terms of language, but they're also the boots on the ground. So, we're not out there delivering counseling services, working with youth, working with the communities that we want to reach, and so we lean on them to tell us how this issue is evolving. So the best partnerships for us are really those where everyone's coming to the table with their best resources, and we've all been there when you're in a transactional partnership, and even with a nonprofit, they'll say, it's this much money, and then this is what you get, right? But when we started the conversation with Jen, it was here's what we're trying to accomplish, we could do that and this, and then we say, we can do that and this, and so it's building and building, and then everybody wins. So those are the spaces where you can really make magic happen.
Yeah, to pick up on both of those examples, I think especially coming from having previously been on the corporate side, matching up with nonprofits at Kenneth Cole, and then now being on sort of the other side of that, you'll have to start with the negative, Pamela, you'll have a brand or a company come and say they want to just almost pay a donation to look like they care about a cause, and we find that those partnerships, we don't renew them. We're not interested in if it wasn't worth what everybody thought they were going to be getting out of it. However, when we have partners like the Sachs Foundation, we have a really amazing partner with the Universal Music Group and some other people who, it's not about money, it's not about their megaphone, it's about all of it and what we can do together. Example, what are the goals? What are we trying to achieve? And do the people that you're partnering with, not just the organizations, but the actual people, are they flexible? Are they open? And do they really want to achieve the same things that you're looking to achieve?
So just to punctuate that, because I'm sure we can talk about this for a while. I'm not sure how we are on time, by the way. Does anyone have okay, let's just wave when we have 5 minutes. So could each of you give your number one hot tip for working with a partner, in the mental health space, and hopefully the mental health space, but in general, so people can take away something useful and actionable?
Okay, someone else has to.
All right. Number one hot tip. Okay, you have to start with what are you trying to do, right? Because you can't choose what partner you want until you have an outcome that you're driving towards. So if Sachs, hint, no teasers, is looking to explore the intersection between climate and mental health, and what does that mean? first call mental health coalition. Like, what does that, like, who's your trusted partner? What does that mean for you? So they can then say, these are what we're looking at, these are the partners we're talking to, these are the messages we're thinking about. So it's knowing like what your end goal is and what your North Star is, and then your partners can help to drive you there.
I like mapping superpowers, and it's one of the things I say a lot is like, what are you the best at? And as you form a partnership, how can we make sure we're not all the best marketers, we're not all the best implementers of service, and then we sort of like match each other up so that we're having the most effective partnership for good.
Okay, I have my hot tip.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I had to think about it a little bit. I think the most important thing, or the hot tip, is to make sure that you're both going to the same place. You want to end at the same place, and you know, you may take one way or one mode of transportation, and the other might take another. But that you know that you're okay with all of the steps along the way, but that the end goal is shared.
So like making sure our North Stars are related, are aligned, and knowing who we are, right? That's my summary of our hot tips. So we clearly have a lot of people in the audience who are interested in diving in to mental health and making it more part of what they do. What advice would you have for companies that are starting off incorporating it into your impact mission?
Well, I mean, the first piece of advice would be to do it, please. And I think that it's don't be afraid of it. I think there's so many people that you can say mental health to, and they're just like, you know, what does that mean? Or it's still, there's a lot of stigma, I think. And, you know, mental health is just health. So I think that the more you can talk about it in a workspace, the more that people will relax. And ultimately, it's the better, if you're really, the bottom line is, I kept hearing somebody, you know, talk about the, you know, the profitability, and the bottom line is, but I think that, you know, you will get so much more out of talking about complicated, hard issues. And I think you'll have happier people that work with you. So I think it's like, it's not a matter of like if, it's like, just take the step and call the Mental Health Coalition.
I completely agree with that. I think the first step is to just start, but it's a complex issue and it's not straightforward. And I think that a part of some people may have, companies may have an insecurity or a hesitancy to talk about it because, like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about schizophrenia? Are we talking about wellness? Can it just be face masks, or do we have to, you know, talk, like, how deep do we go? And so understanding and educating yourself about the whole spectrum of mental health and where you play an authentic role in that space, I think is a critical point to start. So nonprofit partners are the perfect place to have that conversation because they want you to partner on this, and so they're a trusted resource of information to help you navigate that conversation.
And Jen, can you also speak to companies that are interested in making it part of their culture and also trying to reconcile that with their philanthropic work and commitment and volunteerism, and there's so many different aspects of how we do good?
Yeah, I think because so many employees and people, generally speaking, have been talking up about mental health and how important it is, but it's almost sort of on the negative side become a bit of an industry for HR departments to implement lots of things that are much more complicated than sort of the simple things that might work and really, you know, encourage a great mental health culture. One of the things the coalition did last year, we have these roadmaps to mental health, which take seemingly complex mental health topics and try to break them down using all of our 34 member resources. And we did one to managers in the workplace, because the thought is, if I am a manager and I have employees who are struggling or who have family members that are struggling, we hear a lot about people with children, people with aging adults in their lives that they have to care for. How do I have a conversation about what's happening and how it might be affecting my work with my manager if they're afraid to talk about it because they're, not sure what they should say, etc. So we created that resource, really thinks a lot about the culture and the managers. And then a lot of our partners have these amazing programs. The Mental Health Coalition team, we did the Mental Health America training. There's at Kenneth Cole, we became stigma free. There's so many resources, and you can get them on our site. You can talk to us. That you don't need to buy everyone a wellness app that works for your team. It could, you could really integrate in other ways. I loved all of Jed's examples as well.
Yeah. And I just kind of want to piggyback off on that really quickly, because I couldn't agree more that employees experience their work culture through their managers. Like that's how it comes to them. And so it's really responsibility of managers out there to model that help-seeking behavior or asking behavior. And from my days working like in a mental health nonprofit, we know that just starting that conversation is the first step. And that even just practicing, like, are you okay? Like, do you need help? And you don't have to be a mental health professional to ask those questions, because guides like what Mental Health Coalition's provided will tell you where to point people next, or tell you what to do next, or your HR team can tell you what to do next. But every manager has a duty to their employees to say, how are you? Are you okay? And if you think about it, even in terms of productivity in the workplace, mental health is like the gas and the brakes on productivity. So if you have positive mental health, you're unstoppable. But everyone knows when you're struggling, like mentally or internally, it can really put the brakes on all of your progress in every aspect of your life. So what manager wouldn't want that kind of success for their employees?
And sometimes it's like a frog in boiling water. It's hard to, which is a really gruesome example, but it's hard to name it when you're in it, and you need the support to help pull you out of the pot. We'll drop the metaphor. But. Do we want to move to questions? We have time for a few questions? Yeah?
15 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay, we'll do some questions and then maybe we can chat more. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. We'll think if you do have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll come to you.
I just wanted to say that the one Jen mentioned, the training that we did with Mental Health America was the mental health first aid. Is that what it's called? That's a great way to get involved and to start and just call them. We did it on Zoom, but I presume that they can come to your office also. And it was pretty enlightening, a lot of the language and different ways and subtle things that, I was like, oh, I better stop doing that. Like there were just definitely a few moments that it was very helpful. And then it's like CPR, you get trained and it feels good, and you can put it in your signature. But that's a good way, I think, for companies to start, because you learn a lot.
And you did that with Mental Health Coalition, right? Yeah.
Yes.
How do you, can you share a little bit about, like, you're such a strong leader, but your team, can you share about what the size of your team is, what it looks like, and how you walk the walk?
Sure. I started doing remote work in 2014. So I had a company before that was sold, and I had 3 small children at home. I was a single mom, and I decided that I didn't want to have an office to go to anymore. I wanted to be home, which I don't know what my kids think of that, actually. That's what I'm thinking about. But so I hired everyone as freelance consultants. So right now we have 7 people, and they're all over the place. And then during the pandemic, they really went all over the place. But we have 3 meetings a week. For a couple of hours, and then everyone does their independent work, and it all kind of funnels, and we just each have shared responsibilities. And people get time off. I'm really trying not to push everyone. I had a very hard time work balance. I think creative people sometimes have a hard time with balance. And so if something isn't done, I'm not really on them. I'm like, get it to me when you can, like take care of yourself, take care of your family. And, you know, which I had a very different first, 15 years of my career. It was like work was first, and, I just try to balance it now.
Well, I think how many people here have a hybrid work environment? Well, how many people work solely remotely? So can you speak to how you have these conversations? Like, how do you create culture with a digitized, decentralized workplace?
I don't know, we do Zoom, we do FaceTime, we talk about personal things also,
Yeah.
I think. And then, we really share when we have a success or we have a challenge, like we just all share it. Mine is a creative studio, so it's like everyone has their own culture. And actually I really like that. I don't really want, my previous company, it was Kate Spade, and there was a very strong, like, drink the Kool-Aid culture, which at the time seemed like it was okay, but I think that, having your own individual self is part of being part of a bigger culture. And so I don't really want the culture to come from Prinkshop or me, or, I want everyone to have their own independent culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, authentic and caring about what their lives are,
Right.
and bringing that to work.
Right.
So Jillian, when you said you came to Saks and you work in the foundation, how do you work with the team internally, with HR, with corporate social responsibility? What do those internal partnerships look like?
I force myself upon them. Just kidding. My function actually sits inside brand marketing, which is really interesting. Because you would think that like a mental health conversation might be a part of HR, or that the foundation might run independently, but they wanted to align the foundation and impact as a brand promise. And it's interesting, kind of like a side note, which is an interesting conversation for the Kenneth Cole team as well, is in the CSR space, the main direction is that you should be funding or engaging in impact areas that align to the core business product, right? So if you work in technology, you should be working in digital literacy, or if you work for, in book publishing, then you should be working in literacy or education. So mental health does not connect in a through line to that many corporations. So it's inside brand marketing is a really interesting way to have them invested in what we're doing to make sure that that message comes through in the right spaces. So the way that we work with every team in our company is the foundation actually fundraises for every dollar that we put back out into the community. So every single senior leadership member is my director of development. So they have to go out to all their vendor partners and spread the message about the Saks Fifth Avenue Foundation and engage them in our work, and they come together for a reception where we talk about our partners. So they're as a partner with us learning about this. So that's one way. And then we work directly with our HR team, and our team oversees volunteerism as well to engage associates in the work of our partners mostly, because it's not like we're a non-operating foundation, so we're really just pumping up the cool nonprofit partners that we work with in the world.
And Jen, at Mental Health Coalition, we have, can you raise your hand if you work at the Mental Health Coalition? Yay! So we have some of our team members in the room now, but we're rarely all in the same room at the same time. We're a pretty decentralized team. Can you share how we've walked the walk as far as being a work environment that really prioritizes each other's and our own mental health and not just helps others do that? And then we'll come to you for a question.
So this was really fun because when I started as executive director of the Mental Health Coalition, I was the first employee. So I had to actually build the HR function, including the healthcare rights and what are our policies, what is our insurance. is really an awesome thing to do from a place where we know what our mission is and what we should set out to be.
And it was COVID.
And it was, oh yeah, it was
I
so
remember
many
that.
things. I know we just had to do, I'm probably the only one on the team that hasn't done it, but we just had to do like, you know, the authorization of your identity because everyone who joined did it during not in person, so that was the whole thing. Sorry, sidetrack, just on my to-do list. So we have what I think is a pretty good health insurance plan, making sure that it, you know, is something we can both afford as a small nonprofit, but also prioritize as mental health. We have a competitive paid time off leave as well as one mental health day a quarter on Fridays through from after May, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is pretty busy for the Mental Health Coalition. From June on, we do no meeting Fridays, which really helps. We are remote mostly, although we come here, this is our office when we can, and we have, you know, a few employees who are not in the tri-state area, and so we brought them together for different sort of team building things that focus on strategic planning and trying to think of making really smart usage of our time together, because nothing replaces actually being with people and talking to them and meeting them. I remember when we met Jess, who is our program administrator, for the first time. We had never, you know, actually seen her. It was amazing to actually meet someone and celebrate them and do good work with them. So we try. We also did the training. Pamela was part of it. You know, we're constantly trying to think of, we've done virtual lunch and learns, virtual pizza parties where everyone got a seamless card, you know, whatever we can do to try to make sure, and we're on Slack all the time, but.
And I know we also put the question back to the rest of the team of like, what else should we be doing? What else, how are you guys actually, you know? Let's go to some questions.
Thank you. Suzette Mead with IPG Media Brands. We're a marketing and creative agency. A question on the corporate and nonprofit collaboration side. So you talked a bit about, Jillian, your department sits within brand marketing. Depending on where mental health or these types of social impact issues sit within an organization, you often can have different levels of sustainability, right? For how long and the focus is and the attention goes toward it, whether it's just a policy, a practice, or really a behavior. So my question is, what is your advice to organizations to go beyond just the last 3 years of the trend we've seen in mental health focus and wellness? Ian Wishengrad also mentioned maternal health, which also has gotten some more attention and is now trendy again to talk about. How do you actually make it a sustainable practice and a behavior within your organizations, and how do you advise others to do so?
Just to clarify your question, do you mean, don't get that mic away. Do you mean in terms of like HR benefits and company policies, or externally facing like philanthropy and CSR messaging?
I would say internally, going beyond just making it a policy, but then also externally walking the walk.
Yeah, I think that everything comes from the top, of course, and making public commitments should be held sacred. And so if you're out there saying that, you know, we're gonna have a 5-year goal, we're gonna have a 10-year goal to do something, you can't quit halfway, because I think that we all know, and it just come up in the conversation before, this generation just isn't gonna buy it. And so it's being held accountable by, you know, our consumers, our customers, should keep people honest, hopefully.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that it's something that is here to stay, and it just needs to be, you know, integrated into the long-term part of any company.
Yeah.
Um,
But things can also evolve,
yeah, of
right?
course.
So I think
Or
that
on a base level integrated, and then
right. Like what's interesting about mental health is that eventually the conversation is going to evolve from awareness into next steps, because we touched on it in the beginning, but this conversation has become more relevant and more front and center, especially since COVID, that's no longer like the initial barrier to entry. And so like a corporate commitment can evolve after that. So what's your next step? Is it access to care? Is it specific communities that you want to focus on? So you still do need to leave space to say, okay, if we want to evolve and stay relevant and current here, how are we going to adapt to what's happening? We have one more question over here.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Kristen from Ad Marketplace. This question's for you, Jillian. In a marketer's world, if they seek inspiration, they can look creatively to what other brands are doing out in the public eye. When it comes to social impact, a lot of what you do, as Kenneth mentioned earlier, is benefiting you as the person doing it is done behind the scenes. So where do you look to for inspiration of what can you tackle next? What's the next thing that we're going to, bring big impact to, and how we're going to go to market there?
Yeah, I love this question. So what's interesting is that the reason why SAC started on our mental health journey in 2017 was, and I feel like it's similar to the Kenneth Cole story, is this was an area that was under discussed, wildly underfunded, and so it was a space where we really thought that we could make a difference. And we don't have Google money, and we don't have we don't have Bezos money, and so it felt like something meaningful that we could truly tackle. And so that was the initial point of inspiration. But you have to listen to your communities, and is that internal? Is that your customers, your clients? For us, sometimes that's the brand partners we work with, because we're retailers, so we don't necessarily make our own product. But we hear from not just the big institutional brands, but also the small businesses on like what are they struggling with, what are they working with, and responding to those. Like that's where we feel like we can make traction in a really authentic and meaningful way.
Any other questions?
No, we got cut off. She said.
One little closing goodbye. So thank you all so much. We covered a lot. We talked about just starting. If you want to, I think I've said walking the walk about 10 times, and I've heard others echo it. If you want to walk the walk, just start trying to have the conversation. We talked about listening internally and externally. We talked about empowering leadership within, and Jillian, you offered a really interesting way of incentivizing them, right, to go out and figure out what they care, where they want to be working. But also, Mental Health Coalition has this really, really helpful managers training roadmap. And we talked about alignment with partnerships and knowing who you are, and just really can't emphasize enough the value of partnering with nonprofits who are devoted to this kind of work. And Jen will be here for a while today, and Mental Health Coalition has a lot of resources and relationships, and we exist to connect people. So please flag her down, or anyone else on the team as well. Yeah, thank you all so much.